Welcome to the Palisadoes Foundations Calico Challenge presentation for the Inside Open Source project. For those of you who don't know, the Palisadoes Foundation LLC is a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization registered in California. It was conceived by a group of Jamaican technology professionals interested in assisting in the continued development of new and existing technologies in Jamaica. Our principal activity is the Calico Challenge, where each year we sponsor summer internships for university students studying in Jamaica. The students work on developing open source software projects under the guidance of a professional mentor. Stipends are paid upon achieving predefined milestones. The Insight and insite-api projects that you're about to see are managed by students or by mentors Jhamali, Vassel and Xavier, Bryson, who mentor students Matthew, Patterson and Tevon Davis. The Insight suite of projects is aimed at storing and charting data from various computerized sources. And we will begin with Matthew Patterson. Thank you. Matthew, please go ahead.
Hello, good night everyone. My name is Matthew Patterson and I'm here to showcase what's one of the Palisadoes Foundation open source project, the insite-api specifically. The insite-api focuses on the back end of the entire project. It's a 3-module project which has front end, back end and middleware. So as we dive into our presentation, let's first ask this question: what is insite-api? And as you can see, insite-api is merely a GraphQL server for time series data scraping. Now, the insite-api, as it utilizes the GraphQL API, it utilizes it so it can monitor systems in real time, as well as to view and track related granular data on each system, whether that system be a mobile phone or a computer. Now, as you can see, a screenshot of the GraphQL playground. What's on the screen right now would be a query that is just querying of some data about one system, particularly my system, which I use to test the insite-api. Right now, all I'm doing is fetching all the display information of my system, and as you can see to the right, you can see the timestamp information of the displays connected to my system. Now, let's go to the next thing. What are the benefits of the insite-api? All the power of a GraphQL server can offer. Is everyone hearing me properly? Okay. The main benefits for this project is that it's open source, and if one thing can be compared to open source projects is the Linux distribution. An open source project can be built upon by many other companies, other individuals, because it's fair use. It's flexible system. As I said, it can be used to monitor any type of system, and the data is accessible in real time due to how the GraphQL API is set up. So as I said, insite-api utilizes the GraphQL API, which offers a simple and seamless method of requesting, modifying, and tracking data on systems. These are done with queries, mutations, and subscriptions, respectively. Now, what is GraphQL? Well, GraphQL is just an alternate approach from the REST API, which is commonly known to all developers of all kinds. If you can look to the screen right now, you can see the setup of a diagram showing the typical REST API. And you can see to the right, the approach for GraphQL is actually similar. If you can see from the client, from the arrows going down to the REST API database, you can see that it's get/products/123. Now, if you look to the right, for how you request data in GraphQL, it's more structured and more readable, because I can ask for the name and description specifically, whilst in the REST API, if you put what you see on there, you actually retrieve all the data. Now, maybe there are some people who know the REST API really well, and I am well aware of the dot operator. I can specify the name and description right after the product ID to the left. So it would read get/product/123 dot whatever I want specifically. But think of it like this: programming has evolved over the years, and it has come from binary to now natural languages. Now we'd like to go it a step further. As of everything going to the cloud, we want everything to be as easy and understandable so work can be efficiently done. So taking the GraphQL approach will make that happen. Now, let's look at the main functions of GraphQL, which I said before, queries were the first thing. Mutations and subscriptions was one of their latest features. A query is used to read and fetch values, while a mutation is used to write or post values. A mutation
Matthew,
is... Hello?
hang on a second. We're going to have to ask Tevon to stop presenting, and Matthew, please present again.
Hmm?
Continue presenting. Are you presenting now?
I'm still presenting.
Just double check, please.
Double check. Where did you guys get cut off? Oh, resume presentation. Resume. Where did you guys leave off?
We heard all your audio, but the slides were not present.
All right. What slide? What slide did you saw last? This one, right?
Slide 9.
Slide 9. Okay, thank you. Slide 9. Okay. Let's do this once more. So let's ask the question, what is GraphQL? Now, GraphQL is just an alternate approach to the REST API. It's quite similar, but mainly how you retrieve data is more ordered, different. It's ordered differently, and it's easier to understand. It's not like a one line. It's structured. If you've ever written a piece of code, you could easily see that it's very simple. All right. Next, for queries, mutations, and subscriptions are the features of main functions of GraphQL. And as I said, a query is used to fetch data from a database, and a mutation is used just to modify the data in a database. While a subscription allows the server to send data to its clients when a specific event happens. Now, you might ask, what kind of event are you talking about? Well, that's where the mutations come in. Suppose you wanted to change data in real time and see that happen in real time. That's where the subscriptions would come in hand. A mutation would actually trigger an event. So supposedly an administrator were to change the values of some kind of data in the database, the subscription that would have been written would track that and show that data in real time. Now, just an example of mutations and subscriptions, like the previous examples in the query in the screenshot I gave you. You can see here the mutation right here is to change the staff's name to cheesecake, as well as the subscriptions that was set up. The product events were subscribed to, and when the name is changed, you can see that happen right here. Now, just a little visual of how it all comes together. The GraphQL from the transport layer, then you have the GraphQL, the business logic, and the data access, which is user defined by us. Now let's look at the key decisions in the design. So some of the design decisions. We went with subscriptions over live queries because live queries, it's very easy to write a live query. It's just you just write one decorator and it does the same thing of subscriptions, but subscriptions need events to actually occur. So we went with subscriptions because we could actually control those live data that's being tracked to specific things that could happen in the database, specific changes, as I said, any event. Which with live queries, just adding a decorator to just track something, it can become very vague and ambiguous with a large system. Now, last thing we went on to doing was the user accounts. Created some user account side for it, and after all the testings and the project integrations with the other two components of the insite-api, we're going to go into launch. The process for me from start to stop, I like to call it study, start, and stop. I call these the 3 S's. This describes my time when handling the project over a few months that I've been placed on it, thankfully. I'm really grateful to have a part of this open source project. You really opened my eyes because it just showed me these 3 S's are just life. You study, you start, and you stop, you take a break, and you just repeat and you continue. Now let's go into some of the challenges I had. All right, some of the challenges I had were your rudimentary challenges that anyone may have faced, but like tailored to this specific project, my challenge was overcoming the spec, which is the GraphQL specification, because GraphQL was created by Facebook and it's relatively new, you could say. And sometimes when I went to Stack Overflow, I couldn't find anything. I was just all over GitHub issues and everything, but like I faced a lot of errors while doing some code for this project, and I just had to deviate to the specification files, because that's where everyone said me. Actual devs on GraphQL literally just said me, just read the specification file. Now let's look into the team that was a part of this project. From top to bottom, you can see my project coordinator, Jordan Jones, my mentor, Jhamali, Vassel, and myself, which was the developer for this project. I contributed, Matthew Patterson. Well, thank you for having me, guys. As anyone have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Is there anybody that has any questions? Matthew, I have a question for you related to the GraphQL aspect. What sort of data would people be querying with the queries that you have, and where would that data be sourced from? How is that data stored and retrieved and then presented to the final user?
Okay, for my side, I didn't actually get to see any of how it would actually look in the end result for the design front end part, but for querying data, I can actually show you. Well, to query data, can you ask over your question or type it? I didn't get all of it, it was quite long. Vito?
I just wanted to find out how you got the data, and possibly just provide us maybe a live demo of you actually retrieving it.
Okay, so all the data is stored on the systems that the application is on. It scrapes all the data from the system and collects everything based off the payload in the schema. If you can look to the screen, if I'm still screen sharing, I can show you the schema, and you see the payload right here. I'll highlight it. For the system that the project is on, it scrapes the system, the BIOS, the baseboard, the OS, and as I showed earlier before in a screenshot, display information of the current system. So on my laptop, if I were to start up insite-api, which I'm about to do, it will scrape all the information for the laptop and give me all the information I desire. If I ask for everything, give me a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Alright, so right now we're starting up the server, and that command is going to start scraping information. See, it's now scraping. You can see all that information fly by. I'm gonna start up the GraphQL. And the playground will come up. Right, so it's on the original thing that I showed before, but I can go retrieve another entity in the payload for you guys. I had them pre-written and saved, so I can easily copy and paste them. These are the test queries we did to ensure that data is being retrieved. And you see that now? We just got all the data, so it would tell you that the BIOS for my system is for the vendor inside and the version HP. So I'm using an HP computer. Even on the manufacturer, the information is right there. So the data is pre-stored on the computer already. What Insight just does is just scrape all that data and stores it in a database we call Insight database, of course. And we just retrieve that information that was scraped from the computer directly from the database that we created to store all the information that was scraped.
Okay,
And
so hang on a
yes,
second. So based on what I'm seeing here, you would go to the particular URL, which would be localhost 8080 GraphQL,
for my
and
side,
then
right now,
on your
yes.
side, yeah, but you would also post that what looks like JSON as a part of the as some sort of a
This is
post.
just raw data right now. I'm
Hmm.
sure it will be cleaned up and put into more presentable form on the front end side.
Right, but what I'm saying though is that for the API, you would post this JSON on the left-hand side, which is essentially the query of what you want to get.
No, the query is on the left and the JSON data is from the on the right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but what I'm saying though is that the query would be posted in the form of the what appears to be JSON on the
Yes.
left-hand side.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then the results would come out on the right.
Yes. Yes.
I see. And the data, and when you said that the data was being used, I think you said it's a subscription model.
Hmm.
Right. So that means that this data is not live. This has been pre-scraped, and then you
Yeah.
take the data from the database.
Yes, how it would work for the subscription, I don't have one right now to show you because we ran into some errors. Because I had recently written if you can see here, this would be the mutation that would be one of our subscriptions for it, but we still have some minor errors. Yeah, some internal errors that I was sorting out. But how it would work is imagine the subscription to the left, similar to how you saw it before. Let me just make sure you refresh your memory. How it would look like right here. It would look the same, but exactly if anything, if I was on another tab, changing anything, and this was a subscription, well, the information on the right would be changing.
Okay. Does this mean that you have to have an idea of what the type of data is that's being stored on the database beforehand?
Well, that is true because you can't query something that doesn't exist.
Okay, so is there a way in which you can query all the possible fields that can be retrieved from the database so that you'll have an idea as to what's possible, like to retrieve a schema or something like that?
Yes, that's a possibility.
Okay. How do you feel that this would be applicable to possibly Jamaican industry, based on what you've seen here? The fact that you're storing data and retrieving it in this more modern style, when compared to a RESTful API.
I'm not sure really right now. That wasn't on my head.
But would you think there'd be application of this for
Yeah, there
in the
were.
future?
Yeah, there are good applications for this. There's just some escape my mind right now. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. What were some of the other challenges that you're talking about? You mentioned the fact that you had a number of you had mentors and there's some collaboration that's going on. What non-technical challenges did you face as a part during the project that you had to overcome?
Non-technical things I had to overcome was working remotely. I've always worked in structured environments that had administration, etc. The whole 101. But working remotely was very challenging because I had to like juggle my time because things kept coming up, and I still had to do this project. And I sought some advice from my professors at school, and they told me sometimes just get out of the house and do work. I didn't really got a chance to do that, but a lot of the times if I got out, I had to do something still. But it's really about experience and getting used to it. Because after a while, after studied up and could write queries by myself, mutations by myself, and subscriptions, it was really easy. Because one of the things that actually took up a lot of time was the subscriptions, because after I had studied how to actually do it, I felt as though I couldn't do it still, because when I wrote the subscription for it, it just didn't work. And then for like a few weeks, we went through another phase of testing, and we had come to the conclusion that it was a TypeScript error, an error that we couldn't have solved right now. So that's why I had put subscriptions on hold, have the mutations ready with the user account info code, and then we'd sort out the TypeScript error after.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think I've been dominating the questions. Is there anybody else on the line that has questions? We have Tevon coming up next. Well, Matthew, seeing that there's nobody else, we are going to say thank you very much for showing us, and hoping that Tevon will have an opportunity to present now.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for having me. Have a good night.
Tevon, are you there?
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Sorry, I'm here. Okay, good night, everyone. It was a bit of Greek to me, but interesting.
All right, thank you, Caroline. We'll send you the links, and please feel free
yes,
to
I want to
send it
to
off.
the team.
Okay,
I will
you're welcome.
do that. Thank you.
Okay,
congrats,
goodbye.
everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye. Tevon, you're up.
All right. Let's get the screen share. All right. Good night, everyone.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good night, everyone. You're able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear and we can see the presentation.
Yeah.
All right. So, my name is, as you can see, Tevon Davis, and my mentor is Xavier Bryson. And the Calico project that we chose to work on was Insight, which was previously Insight Garnet. So it had a bit of a name change. Just a quick self-introduction. So I'm a developer from Spanish Town, St. Catherine. I'm currently pursuing my computer science degree. I began coding in late 2014. Before I got into programming, I actually did graphic design and a bit of illustrations. And what really led me actually into programming was the fact that I used to create mock-ups of interfaces in Photoshop, and then I really wanted to interact with those mockups, and I decided that I should probably start learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript so I could actually start creating interfaces that could be interacted with. And pretty much from there, I just went all into programming and decided to actually pursue it as a career. So I'm actually going into my second semester this year. Some of my interests include data visualization, WebGL, WebAssembly, progressive web apps. Actually, interested in GraphQL and microservices as well. So I do both full stack, both backend and front end. Outside of coding, I read a lot. Mostly read if I'm not coding, and illustrate and listen to music. All right, just a few keywords that I could get in here just in case. So client side, so this is the visual layer of a software that supports user interaction. It's anything that the user base of your application interacts with really. So the client side are the persons who are using the end product, and it's generally visual. So that's what the client side is. Components are small pieces of interfaces that can be composed into a large organism of the interface. And then time series is data in chronological order. All right, so project introduction. So the project, once again, it's Insight. That's the link right there to the repo. And it's really a client-side dashboard for presenting time series data. Well, it was supposed to be presenting time series data, but we switched it and decided to do uh, do a presentation of the data being taken from a remote device or a local device and present the information from that system, such as specs from the device, such as its CPU, its make, model, that kind of information. It is powered by the insite-api and the insite-api team. So that was that presentation that just went by. So we are actually being powered by their work on Calico. So our work is to actually present that information in a visual manner. So you saw where he was showing the queries, mutations, and then the GraphQL response of those queries that we can actually pull from, and then we would actually present that information to the clients. So the tech stack of this project is it uses React.js, and React.js is a client-side tool or library for creating user interfaces. It's generally used to create single-page applications using small components that are reusable, and it makes creating interfaces much more easier than it would be on, say, using straight HTML, because if in HTML, if you have certain pages or so, if you're just doing HTML, you have to create like a nav bar several times over if you're using HTML pages. But with React, using single page applications, you can actually just create a single component and have that component used all throughout your application, and that reduces redundancies. So it's actually created by Facebook. It's open source by Facebook, and also as well as GraphQL, which is used to power it. We use the style components, and that's just a way for us to style components, as the name suggests, using JavaScript and CSS. Because the power of JavaScript in CSS makes CSS, I wouldn't say superior to regular CSS, but it makes it way more interesting. The things that you can do, coupling the logic of JavaScript with the abilities and styling of CSS. There's insite-UI, which is actually a package that was built by Jordan Jones and myself. I actually helped on that project to create an NPM package that we could use to pull in a small component library of components that we could use throughout the project and just keep it separate and apart from the project itself. There are many other open source packages that we used, and I actually included the package JSON of Inside so you guys could actually take a look at that. So I'm just gonna leave it up here just for a few seconds. All right, so my contributions to the project, my contributions included adding mobile responsiveness to the project. I helped with implementing the new Insight rebranding and design, which was actually designed by Jordan Jones in Figma, which is another tool that is used to create user interfaces, mockups, and illustrations, but it's fully online based, and it's actually built using React.js as well. I use a bit more semantic HTML in the project, and worked on implementing the insite-UI package, which I spoke about previously. So I'm just going to go ahead now at this moment to switch over to the actual project. And all right, so just to start with, what you're seeing here is insite-api just continuously scraping data from system server. So what we use to pull this data is system server, insite-api, and MySQL to store that data. So currently this information that you're seeing that's being scraped and presented from insite-api is not actually from my device, but actually a remote device that's on the same network that I'm using. So I have a computer by the other side of the room. Wouldn't be able to show you guys right now. However, that computer, I installed a system server on it, and then I ran system server. I took that IP address, and then I connected to that IP address from my computer and pull the data remotely from that computer. So everything you're seeing is not actually the specs of my computer, but another computer which is in the room on the same Wi-Fi network. And just a quick view of the MySQL database using the workbench. So you can see some of the columns in here. Just a sec. Oh, Lord. All right. So my system is a bit slow. I hope you can all bear with me for a bit. Yeah, so you can see this ID, timestamp, manufacturer, and these are just some of the columns that are in the database. So there's a lot of information being pulled from by insite-api and then stored into the database and being pulled to the front end. So we're just gonna actually go straight to the front end now. And so this is a dashboard. This is the first screen that you actually see when using the dashboard. We have an empty state that tells the users to actually choose a client to begin, and the clients are listed on the left-hand side in a sidebar. So we currently have one client, which is the one that is over to the side of the room on the same network. So we're just gonna go ahead and click on that. But if there were more clients being pulled in, it would actually list all the clients using JavaScript map. All right, so the dashboard is populated with information. I will show it visually using some components that mimic actual chipsets and circuitry. Well, not circuitry, circuitry from a device. So these are actually components as well. So you can see that this device is manufactured by Intel, uses a Core i3, and total memory is 6.35 gigabytes of RAM. Total use so far is 81%, so it's almost used up. But we can get all that information directly from here. There's a lot more information that could be pulled in, but this is just a subset of information that we chose to display on the dashboard. But it could be extended to show a whole suite more of information, because the API that we're pulling from just has a set query that pulls just what we need. And that's one of the, even though while we're on the topic of insight, that's one of the beauties of GraphQL, is that unlike regular REST API endpoints where you generally set the specific resources that gets pulled from an endpoint that you hit coded in the backend, GraphQL allows you to pull exactly what you need. And the beauty of that is a lot of the times you may just want a person's name from a database, but there's the endpoint maybe has a user endpoint is the best thing that you get, and it comes just with a whole lot of information about the user, and that's extra payload that's coming over the wire and extra bandwidth that's being used. And you may not need all that information for something that you're presenting. Maybe you just need the user's name, first name and last name. So with GraphQL, it allows you to specifically choose, select and query the exact piece of information that you want from that database. And that reduces the payload that's being sent over the wire. All right. So I have another tab here set up, and what I did in this tab was just to do just go to the console, sorry, not the console, but the dev tools, and go to the networks tab where you could actually see one of the responses that was being brought back. So we can actually see here, get all data, and we can see in memory we have active read ID, which is being used, which is what you can see here as well. So total, and just a host of information that you can see that's being pulled in from the back end. All right. Close that out. And All right, so on the backlog, some of the features that we wanted to add to the project were drag and drop customization, where we could actually move around the components to create a customized dashboard. We decided not to go ahead with that. There's a bit of complexity in implementing a dashboard like that. No, not necessarily the dashboard, but implementing a dashboard where we do drag and drop and keeping them set in specific places with different size components. So that was a bit of a challenge. Also, there was dark mode, which we had planned to implement, but we didn't get the time to actually go around to implementing the dark mode. So lessons learned. I actually learned for the first time actually on this open source project how to actually keep a fork up to date with a master branch. It's never something I ever thought about before. Knowing that if you have a fork, you generally have to keep it up to date, but it's never something I thought to myself, I probably should learn this. But actually being on the Calico and the Insight project, I actually learned a whole stuff, Git functionality more than what I knew before, because I've used Git. I use Git currently, but I've only used like maybe 3 commands from Git through everything. So like probably like Git pull, Git init, stuff like that, or just some very minor functions from Git or GitHub. But I actually learned how to keep a fork up to date. I learned how to do a PR, a pull request for a project, using GitHub and just a host of other things I actually learned. So it was really beneficial. Um, I learned to think carefully about feature implementations. I think initially coming into the project, for example, that drag and drop customization, I was only thinking, this would probably be something pretty cool to add into it, but I hadn't really thought about like the use case or how useful it would have been for users, and what's the benefit, or like maybe the business benefit of that, and how costly it would be to implement, not necessarily cost, but as in time, possibly time to implement such features. So it really made me start to think about features, more than just like stuff that you think about at the top of your head and just drop it, but actually thinking about how best it solves, this whole best the feature solves a solution, and how well to prioritize and actually work on those features. Paying keen attention when recreating design docs as React components. I remember doing the first first bit of coding on Insight where Jordan had actually asked me to do the redesign, actually create some of the components and do the redesign of the whole redesign of Insight, and he had created a Figma board with the specifications, and I was going through and I was building it piece by piece. I created it pretty well. I did a pretty good recreation of what he had designed on Figma. However, he actually pointed out to me that even though the fonts were similar, that actually wasn't the font, and it was actually different font. So stuff like that, like paying way more keen attention to details, to small design details, is something I actually learned while working on that. I learned about some new libraries as well, such as React Reach, just to name of one of the many I learned about, and style components as well. So like React Reach is actually made by the original React Router group, but they decided to create another one and make up for some of their shortcomings with React Reach from React Router. So that was actually good to find out, even though the API it's still it's still a bit the same as React Router. So moving forward, future plans. Contribute. I definitely plan to start contributing back to open source tools that have made my dev life better. Open source overall, I think, makes the world better by providing great code. That might sound a bit cheesy, but I feel like having your code, having open source tools, there's a lot more eyes that are in the code base that can say, hey, there's this problem, or that's this thing, or there's this bug or this security issue, and it makes I think it makes software more trustworthy, even though there have been issues in the past where open source software have had issues. To name a few, like with I think it was LeftPad, that was an npm package that kind of turned the internet upside down. And next build, I definitely intend to start actually building more, having side projects that are able to help me to boost my skills, because working in open source or just working on projects, it really helps you to learn a lot, gets you out there to do research and stuff like that. Because I learned I really some really good things. Sorry about that. Some really good skills to take with me out there in the developer world, um, when contributing back to open source or just working as a team on a project. Next up, explore. I'm definitely going to be trying out new technologies to stay relevant in such a fast-paced environment that is the tech industry. There's always something, like we're at the bleeding edge as to where the world is concerned. So it's always good to stay relevant, because you never know. You might you put your head down, you put your head up back, and before you know, you might be irrelevant, or the industry has passed you by. So it's always good to explore and learn the new technologies as they come about. So I think that's really important. So that's the end of my presentation. If anyone has any questions, you can actually shoot those at me right now, if you like.
Thanks, Tevon. Is there anybody there that would like to ask some questions based on the presentation?
Yeah, sure. Great. Good night, everyone. Great presentation, Tevon.
Sure.
Just wanted to find out, in terms of pulling information from that other laptop that you were showing, what other information were you able, or could you have pulled in terms of carrying it further? What other features of that you could pull?
So I actually have the all the information that's been pulled from that laptop up, right here. So I can actually show you right now a lot more that could be pulled in. So for example, we have the BIOS information, there's baseboard, there's so much more that we could have pulled in, just so much information, a lot more, way more than I could have think to use actually. So we have like memory layout, displays, just about everything that you could probably think about that you need from a device, you can actually pull, using system server and insite-api. So this is all information that we could have used, but we decided just use just a small amount of it on the dashboard. But there is room for a lot of other ideas and lot of other use cases, because the insiders were just like a presentation layer, but there's so much different things that you could use this information to present on or use it for. Because there's a lot in here. So I just had this up just in case anybody ever wanted to see.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
No problem. Any other questions?
Yes, we have a question from Jeff Waddington. He's asking, of the work that you did, what are you most proud of?
What I'm most proud of? It might sound weird. I think what I was most proud of was creating the breakpoints, the different breakpoints in actual JavaScript. So what I did is I had some constants at different breakpoints, and I used those to actually so just one more thing that I've got to show you was the responsiveness of the design. So those breakpoints were actually used to do that, and then we used a bottom bar that slides to bring up the information, but also to keep it out of the way because of the small real estate of a mobile device. So I'm just going to inspect it and show you guys right now. Forgive me if my device is really slow. All right, so on responsiveness. So on a small device, we could actually slide up on the bottom just to get the clients again, and actually slide to remove that from the viewport. That's another thing that we added to the project. So if you had like a long list of clients, you wouldn't have to worry about them all being on the side or being in the screen real estate if you weren't looking at them at the time. So I decided to go ahead and build bottom sliding app bar that we could bring up and remove at will to view more or view the rest of the clients if you had more clients that were being displayed on the dashboard. Overall, I think I've just all of what I did, I think I'm really proud of, because I came into this project kind of let's say green where React is concerned. So it's been a learning process for me. I really got to dive a bit more into the documentation of React and learn more about React, because front end is a really interesting to me, because I started out really doing client work, client side design, even before I started programming. So this, what React solves is really interesting to me. So just about everything I did on the project was really interesting because it's all new and it's really a learning process for me, and I feel proud of it all. So yeah.
Thanks. I have another question. And so Jeff is also saying well done based on the presentation.
Oh, thank
I
you.
saw where you also have this data that's coming into a MySQL database as the back end, right? So based on what I'm seeing, you have system server on the remote system presenting the insite-api somehow in terms of the interaction behind the scenes, and then you are using insite-api to pull that data and make the presentation. So you have this MySQL data, and I saw where the MySQL data seems to be constantly being pulled or created from the remote system across the room.
Yeah.
What sort of work was done to try and do some sort of graphing or trending over the particular time frame? Because at the moment what you're showing me is just a point in time. And so would one be able to do something, for example, like track CPU utilization and memory in parallel, possibly track CPU utilization, possibly with something like database queries or queries from a third party? So, in other words, to make it more functional and more applicable in a business setting, so that somebody could create a custom monitoring and charting system without necessarily having to go with something off the shelf and then use this instead.
Okay. So business intelligence, like a dashboard that shows like real-time data.
Not just real time, but going back in time. So therefore, you'd be able to see how has memory utilization varied over time, and possibly be able to dynamically show something else similar through drop downs, etc. Was anything thought of doing something like that?
Yeah. Yes, really, because the information is constantly being pulled in. So, and it's being stored. So we do have that time series data to work with and actually display it over a period of time using a charting library such as the Frappy. It could be done. I could see where it would be not difficult to actually create a presentation of that nature where you show the CPU usage at different points in time on a graph, laid out on a graph chart. So it could be done like that way. And yes, that the database does provision that does have that capability because it stores the information. So it would be just to create components that would be able to utilize that data in a chart. So feeding the data into charts that would then present it over time period.
Okay. So Jeff Waddington has a question, and the question is, the data that is being stored in the database, is it being pulled from the server, or is it the client side pushing it? Is it a push or pull model?
Well, wait, could you go again with that?
The data that is being stored in the database, is it being pulled from the server, or is the client side pushing it?
No, so it's being pulled from the system server device across the room. So it's continuously being written, the data is continuously being written into the database.
Okay.
And then being pulled to the client side.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I have one. So Tevon, have you worked with any other front-end frameworks? And if so, how do you think it compares against React?
Yeah, I have actually. I've used Vue.js. I think, I'll be honest, Vue.js is easier to learn than React. I'll be honest in that because how Vue lays out their projects, it's pretty easy for someone coming from general HTML, CSS, JS background to hop into, because Vue has its template, which would be the markup that can be populated with the data. Then it has a script tag for the logic, and then it has CSS for styling, and that styling gets scoped to the component. So from just looking at Vue, you can really understand what's happening. I don't think that's easily said about React.js. However, I still find that I prefer to use React.js. I think it's just a preference for me. But I can say that React is Vue seems to be lighter than React, and as well as being easier to pick up. You find that more persons are willing to pick up Vue over React, but still I find React to be pretty powerful in what it can do in just both routing and presentation as well. I prefer React, but just not from a personal standpoint. Vue is easier, so then that's what I can say. Otherwise, in terms of performance, I wouldn't be able to say about performance, but I would think it's really comes down to the code, the quality of the code that you write, that would separate them performance-wise. And sorry about that. So that would be my take on the two.
Okay, thanks.
So far.
Any other questions? All right, Tevon, thank you very much for the presentation. I think that it'd be really great to see how we could expand this in future to also include some sort of time series data, seeing that you have such a rich source of data that could be used in future.
Yeah.
This project, just for those that have been on the call, this is probably the 4th year that we've been working on this. It's been migrated from Python now over to the React framework, and it's just a matter of time that I think that we could probably recreate some of the functionalities that we've had in the past. I also want to thank some of those sponsors. I've seen a number of them that are on the call, Real Decoy, Simtai, and Vertex Technologies, and I really hope that we can continue with this relationship. The stuff that we've seen over the last couple of months has been really encouraging. Today, Dominic Mills showed stuff related to him trying to use similar tools from the Calico project to try and understand the sentiment of a web page and web page comments using some of the tools that have been previously developed for the Calico Challenge projects. And he was also thinking about finding ways in which he could provide ways to integrate it with the GraphQL backend as well. And so hopefully we'll be able to find ways in which we could blend the two, his being more of a web scraper, and then also with system server, which is really working with more structured data that's coming from fixed libraries being executed on a remote device. Anyway, once again, thank you very much. And we look forward to having this being presented on YouTube in a few hours. All right, thank you.